Assalamu alaikum guys, welcome to chapter 7.4. We're going to be multiplying binomials, but we're going to be using patterns instead. So for the first pattern, we have square of a binomial pattern. Now you're expected to recognize these patterns, especially for Algebra 2. It will make some of your multiplication of binomials much easier. I know that in the previous sample of the last lesson, the last example, I showed you where you were working with the radius and it was being squared, and I just said something. For example, if I have x plus 7 we can squared, we can write it as x plus 7 times x plus 7 and do the FOIL method. But there's patterns that make our multiplication of binomials much easier. So for example, if I have a plus b squared, okay, a plus b squared, just understand that a and b are just terms. It could be a coefficient with a variable, or it could be just a constant, or it can be that both a and b have variables involved, and I'll show you different examples for that. So the way you're going to do that, you're going to take a and you're going to square it. Then since this is plus, we're going to put plus 2ab. Plus 2ab means just 2 times a times b. Then we're going to take our b and we're going to square it. However, when we have a minus b squared, we're going to take a squared. Then since it's minus, we're going to say minus 2ab, so in other words, negative 2 times a times b plus b squared. Your instructions are to find the product. So let's say, for example, that we have x plus 7 squared, okay? Since this is plus, the one that we're using is a plus b squared. Now, understand that the x, that's your a, and your 7 is your b, okay? So here we go. Take our a squared, which is x. We're going to take x squared. We have plus 2ab. So plus 2. Our a is x. Our b is 7. And then plus b squared. Plus 7 squared. Then do the math. Obviously, x squared, it's already simplified. I can't go further with that. So that's just going to be x squared. The middle part, 2 times x times 7. 2 times 7 is 14, times x is 14x. So plus 14x. Then you've got the 7 squared, 7 times 7 is 49. So now if you were to do FOIL method, you should come up with that exact same answer. Okay? Let's try another example. Let's say that we have 2x plus 5, and we're going to square it, okay? So remember, our a is the 2x, and our b is our 5. Now, just understand that with the expressions themselves, you don't have to be keeping track of what's negative, what's positive, and so on and so forth. It kind of already takes care of it for yourself. All right, or for itself, except if the leading term would be negative, but for the most part, they usually don't have it that way. So first thing, take your a, which is 2x. You're going to square it. Since it's plus, we're still using the 2a plus 2ab. 2 times 2x, and then times b, which is 5, and then plus 5 squared. Okay? So now go ahead and do 2x squared. Remember, 2x squared means 2x times 2x. So 2x times 2x is 4x squared. And then plus 2 times 2 times 5 times x. So 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 5 is 20. And don't forget that you have an x. And then at the end, I squeezed in the plus 5 squared. So 5 squared is 25. Okay? Now for our last example with the adding, let's say that we have 3a plus b, and we're going to square it. Of course, I don't need you identifying the a and the b, but if it helps you, it's okay to do it. But I would expect by the time you start practicing it, that you can drop, okay, this is my a, this is my b, and so on and so forth. So we're going to take, again, it's plus, so we're using the first one. We're taking 3a, we're going to square it, plus 2, and then our a is 3a, 2 times 3a. Our b is actually b, so times b. And then the last part is plus b squared. It just so happens that in the b, there's actually a b. So plus b squared. So 3a squared means 3a times 3a, which is 9a squared. And then you have 2 times 3a times b. So 2 times 3 is 6, times a times b means 6ab. All right? And then drop the plus b squared. So it's pretty easy to multiply this way. You're not keeping track of what's the first term, the outer term, the inner term, the last term, and so on. So let's practice with our negatives, guys. I'll keep those up there, just so you can use them as a guide. So here we go. You're still finding the product, and let's say that we have y minus 9 squared. Notice that it has a minus, so therefore we're using the a minus b squared pattern, which is a squared minus 2ab plus b. So remember, our a is y, so we're going to take our y and we're going to square it. Since it's minus, we're going to use minus 2. Our a again is y. Our b is 9. Now, even though it has a minus 9, you don't have to use negative 9 because it's already being taken care of by that minus right there. So just drop it in as a 9. And then plus 9 squared. So y squared, we cannot simplify it anymore, but we have a negative 2 times 9 times y is negative 18y. And then 9 squared is 81. Okay? Next example. We have 3x minus 2 squared. So again, our a is 3x, our b is 2. And it has a minus, so we're using a squared minus 2ab plus b squared. So we're going to take 3x, we're going to square it, minus 2. Our a is 3x, so minus 2 times 3x. Our b is a 2, and then plus 2 squared. And then go ahead and do your math. So 3x times 3x is 9x squared. And then negative 2 times 3 times 2 times x, it's a negative 12x, all right? And then at the end, you have 2 squared, which means 2 times 2. By the way, it's not 2 times that 2, it's 2 times 2, or 2 times itself another time, right? Which is 4. And that's a common mistake sometimes that students make, that they multiply the base to the exponent. Be careful with that. Now our last example right here is 5x minus 2y. And again, we're going to square it. So we're going to go ahead and take 5x. And we're going to square that. Minus 2 times 5x times 2y. And then our b is 2y, so don't forget to put it in parentheses. Squared. Usually you want to put in parentheses if more than one value is given, or if there's a coefficient and a variable involved. So right here, 5x squared. 5x squared means 5x times 5x, which is 25x squared. And then you have a negative 2 times 5 times 2, and you've got x and y also being multiplied. So let's take the numbers first. Negative 2 times 5 is negative 10, times another 2 is negative 20. And don't forget that we're also multiplying x and y, so drop the x and y next to it. All right, and then at the end you have 2y squared, which means 2y times 2y, which ends up being 4y squared. Okay, so this is the square of a binomial pattern. Now there's another pattern called the sum and difference pattern, and if you found this to be easy, yes, it takes a little bit of practice, but if you found it to be easy, the sum difference of a binomial is extremely easy. The only problem with it is that you need to be looking for a certain pattern in it. So this is called the sum and difference pattern. So what that means is that if you are multiplying a plus b and a minus b, binomials that where the a and the b are exactly the same terms, and this it's called the sum and difference. That means one of the binomials has a plus, the other binomial has a minus. So all you're going to do is take your a and square it, put a minus sign, take a b and square it. Okay, so let's put that into practice. So let's say, for example, you have r plus 3 times r minus 3. Okay, remember our a is r, our b is 3. And again, we've got a and b that are exactly the same. So this only works when your a and b's are the same, and it's a plus minus. That's why it's sum difference. All right, so you're going to take your r, you're going to square it, you're going to have a minus sign, and then you're going to take your b, which is 3, and square it. And if you can simplify, you simplify. Obviously, the r squared cannot be simplified, but you've got 3 squared, which is 9. So minus 9, and that's the answer, r squared minus 9. So let's make it a little bit more intricate. Let's say that you have 2x minus 5, and then 2x plus 5. Now remember that it doesn't matter which is first, the plus, the minus, the plus. Here it's plus minus, over here it's minus plus, so it doesn't matter. So our a is 2x, and our b is 5. Again, our a is 2x, and our b is 5. So we're going to take the 2x, remember there's more than one thing going on with it, you've got a 2 and an x, put it in parentheses, and then at the end, you've got a minus sign, 5 squared. So then 2x times 2x is equal to 4x squared, and then minus 5 squared, which is 25. All right, and that's your answer there. And the last example on these problems, let's say that you have 4x plus y times 4x minus y. Our a's are the same, our b's are the same, you've got the sum and the difference. So go ahead and take your a, 4x and square, put your minus sign, and then our b is y. That's going to be squared. And then 4x times 4x is 16x squared. And then minus, and you've got y squared, so just drop it down. Okay, so hopefully you found that easy. Now we can apply this to real world problems. So let's see if I can get the glare out. Okay. So let's say for our word problem, we've got a square herb and vegetable garden, okay? What we know about it, we've been told the site lengths are 2x minus 3 feet. So the whole garden itself, the site lengths are 2x minus 3 feet. There's a question. If herbs are planted in a square area where the sides of that little square area for the herb garden are measuring x number of feet, okay? How much area is left for vegetables, okay? So for that, I've always told you all, when in doubt, you draw it out. So you can assume, let's say that we have a large garden, all right? And since it's square, you know that all of them, all the sides, measure that much, okay? Now, they're saying, let's say, for example, that they have the herb garden taking up this much area, and it's X number of feet right here, okay? So they're saying how much of the rest of the garden is left only for vegetables. So remember that for area of a square, the formula from last year was area is equal to side squared. So in other words, the planning for this is that you need to go ahead and take the area of the large square and subtract it by the small square, and then that finds the difference of what the rest of the area is. So in order to find the area, we're going to take the large and subtract the small. And remember, we're taking side squared minus side squared. So the side squared for the large area is 2x minus 3 feet. We're going to square that. And then the side length for the small area is x feet, and we're going to square that. So x squared. So you can already tell that this x squared, we're not doing much with it because it's already squared. There's no coefficient. So now just go ahead. What pattern are we supposed to be using? You go back to the square of a binomial pattern. Since this has minus, we're going to be using the a squared minus 2ab plus b. So here we go. Area is equal to 2x squared minus 2 times a, which is 2x. And I don't know why that 2 came out that way, guys, but let me rewrite it a little bit so it can be clear for you all. 2x times r3 minus 3 squared, okay? And don't forget, many times kids forget that we've got that minus x squared at the end, minus x squared. You've got to keep track of it, okay? And, sorry, not minus 3 squared, it's plus 3 squared. All right, so here we go. 2x squared means 2x times 2x. So it gives you a is equal to 4x squared. And then you've got negative 2 times 3. That's going to give you a minus 12. And then don't forget that you have x as well. So minus 12x. And then you've got that 3 squared. So it's 3 times 3, which is positive 9. And then don't forget that we have minus x squared. So you still have to simplify. You still have to write it in standard form. So I think we ran out of a space, but I'm going to tilt you just a little bit, and you probably won't see my face as much. But right here, what are our like terms? So look for it, guys. We've got x squared, 4x squared rather, minus x squared. So 4x minus x squared, area is equal to 3x squared. I have nothing to combine with a minus 12 plus 9, so therefore just drop it down. Minus 12x plus 9. Don't forget that we were talking about feet, and we are talking about area, so therefore it's feet squared. So inshallah you found this easy. Yes, it takes practice to do, but you see that you can take a few shortcuts when you're multiplying, or if the FOIL method was confusing you for products of square binomials, this is the easy way to do it. So inshallah, if you have any questions, come to class and we'll discuss any concerns. Assalamu alaikum.